Hey, it's your girl Tori Live, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Faith in Art. So today I'm excited, y'all. I'm always excited, but I'm super excited because of our next guest that we have. So sitting sitting next to me, my gosh, which side? Sitting sitting next to me, I have James C. Ellerbe. Now, if you don't know James C. Ellerbe, he is a phenomenal poet. He is a curator. He works closely with Sister Amira, who is another fantastic poet, and together they have When People Speaks, and that's a platform for poets to just be amazing. In addition to all of the wonderful works that he himself has, we're going to get into talking about his book. We're going to get into talking about the poetry album. James is amazing. And I have some quotes that are near and dear to James's heart. Um, One of the things that he says all the time, and you will find this as a mantra in his life and in his poetry: be the change you wish to see in the world. This is a Gandhi quote. And also, finding a way with words. That is his poetry mantra, his life mantra. And I want to introduce to you James C. Ellerbe. James, hey.
Hey, it's an honor and a pleasure. Very thankful to be a part of your platform. It's an amazing platform,
Thank
and I look forward to our conversation and letting your audience know a little bit more about me and this art form, my passion, what God has put in my spirit um, to share with the world. So I'm happy to be here. Trust me.
Very, very happy to have you with us today. So, for those of you who don't know, this is the Faith and Art platform. Here, we discuss faith and art and how the two coexist in one space. And we, the artists, we are that space. So, if you're not already subscribed to the page and I don't know what you're doing, go ahead and hit the bell because you don't want to miss any notifications on the next episode of Faith and Art and all of the other content that comes out on this channel. Please make sure you subscribe and please, please share. So, James, this is not about me. This is about you. So, how you been?
Um, to be honest, and to be transparent, um, this past 3 years has been one of the most challenging, um, but it has propelled me to a new level in God and really knowing what it means to have trust and faith in God through all challenges. I suffered multiple deaths in my family, not around, not containing COVID or anything,
Mm,
or around COVID, but other complications. I lost um, one of my youngest aunts, um, and then right after that, I lost my father, um, and we can definitely talk about that more because that's an interesting story um, about uh, our connection and a lot of the challenges that I faced, um, rekindling that relationship with my father. But
mm,
it and went through some challenges. My wife and I together, but it has definitely strengthened our bond and our connection with our Lord and Savior. And so I'm thankful for God, even in the midst of the struggle. We tend to just only thank God for all the blessings that we experience in life, but we gotta also thank God for the challenges because it brings out the best in us and molds us into the image that He wants us to be, and that's what's
mm.
more important in life. So, yeah.
Right. Well, I must say condolences to you and your family with all of the losses that you've dealt with, especially the loss of your father. And with this being, and I had no idea honestly, but it's so interesting that this is a Father's Day episode, as well as it being Juneteenth on today, you know. But this is a day that a lot of people, it's a lot of different emotions. Just like with Mother's Day, you know, you have people celebrating, they're happy. You also have the other half of people who are in mourning, or they're sad, or maybe they're even angry, you know. But like you said, you know, you're open to speaking about, you know, your father and stuff like that. And I think that that is, for me, I can't tell anyone how to grieve, but for me personally, talking about talking about, you know, lost loved ones and keeping their memory alive and remembering the good times, it usually helps me process that grief, you know, a little easier, you know. So we're gonna try to keep it light for you, but we want to keep it real too.
Right.
Yeah. So you know, I noticed that you say that it's this has created a deeper connection of faith through pain and trials, and that's big, that's really deep, because like you said, it's very easy to thank God and worship God when everything is like going great. It's great and easy to be an artist when everything's good and everything's great. We can write about, you know, our love poems and our happy poems, but then when it gets heavy, you know, that's when the fire turns up, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, this next question, how do you faith it? Right? I didn't say fake it. How do you faith it when you are just flat out tired? Sometimes, many artists we find, you know, like we get concentrated in our craft, right? We'll constantly run, go, go, go. I got to make this event, make that event, do this, do that, do that. This content has to be built. How do you how do you personally push through, like walk me through how you combat a faith drought?
Well, what I've learned, the more I take this walk, um, it's every challenge that you face, and every victory that you achieve. It's motivation to propel you to the next challenge, the next struggle, the next victory. So I remind myself when I had those moments, even in the midst of the moment that I'm currently in, and how God has brought me out of that.
Right.
That's very important. That helps you sustain your faith when it seems like, it may seem like God is not listening, but God is always listening. A lot of times He's preparing us
Right.
for that next level. And just when you think all the chips, you're about to throw in all the chips, boom, as long as you hold on long enough for him to, bring you to that next glory. There's a scripture that says that, he moves from glory to glory.
Yeah.
In other words, moving from achieving one high level in God, and then bringing you to the next high level in God. And that's what sustains you. That's what reminds you that He has never left you. It says, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." And that's true. That's how I keep faith in it. That's
Mm,
how I, am able to persevere through some of the hardest moments in life. And like I mentioned, um, leaning on Him, getting in His Word. A lot of the stuff you'd be surprised that you face in life is right there in the Scriptures, and all you have to do is just read the blueprint
mm,
for your life.
yeah.
That's why it's called the Bible. Biblical, biblical, um, excuse me, biblical instructions
Basic.
before leaving Earth.
Hey,
And
basic instructions. I feel
yeah,
that.
basic instructions before leaving Earth. And indeed, and that's what it is instructions. How to face some of the challenges um, in life, and
Mm,
how to really have a genuine relationship with God, and that's how I do it. That's how I do it.
right. Mm. You know, a lot of people know you, especially through this pandemic time that we've been in these last few years. A lot of people know you through like the shows, especially the virtual shows that they've seen you on and hosting and curating, especially when people speaks with Sister Amira Shabazz. But like, um, me personally, I know you like we met in person. Like we know each other for real. So you know this right here, this James that I'm getting right here, this is real and concrete and heavy. Not to say that, you're not real and heavy any other time. But I'm really enjoying, even though we're just digging into the meat and potatoes of what we're here to talk about, I'm really enjoying this right here because, anyone who knows you, we know you to be, very happy and lighthearted. And we're going to get into some real deep conversations. And I enjoy, shout out to the platform because I enjoy pulling this out of people. I love to pull out the testimony, out of people. And sometimes the testimonies are not all pretty and beautiful and flowery. And I just want to thank you in advance for your transparency, you know.
Thank you.
So a lot of times, right? A lot of times, right before we find the beauty of an art form, we ourselves, we ourselves are running from something. We ourselves are running from something. We're trying hard to avoid something. We're chasing something or hiding from something, right? So in this running, what chased you into the arms of poetry?
Well, that's definitely an interesting story. First of all, like starting out, um, I didn't even really consider myself a poet initially.
Mm,
Um, Not in the vein of some of the great poets, like Maya Angelou, Giovanni, Sonia Sanchez, Paul Laurence Dunbar, Mary
mm,
Baraka, Langston Hughes. I didn't see myself in those veins,
mm,
but when I poetry when I needed someone to hear me, the page allowed me to share and
mm,
be heard. Um, to me, it was like initially it was like writing my thoughts, writing like in a journal.
mhm,
But it wasn't until it was brought to my attention. No, this is poetry. You're a poet. You need to
mm.
share these words. You need to share what you're feeling.
Right.
So it was a vehicle for me that was open to me at any time where I felt the need to express some of these emotions, some of these feelings, some of these thoughts that I had that I didn't have the opportunity to share with other people. And then when I had the moment to share them in a public forum, when I first learned that there are open mics out there where you can share your work, I mean, it just opened the door to a whole new world to me. And and it was very powerful. It was very transformative. That there are people that really want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
They want to know your feelings. They want to know your fears. They want to know, your struggles, your triumphs. They want to know these things because they don't want to feel alone. They want to know that they're not alone in what they're feeling. So,
It's true.
to me, it was like it was almost, I know it was, divine intervention
Hmm.
because like I said, I didn't even consider myself a poet. Um, I didn't really like poetry, believe it or not, um, because and the reason why is because when you're in high school, that's when I first got exposed to poetry.
Hmm.
You you think of like Shakespeare or Elizabeth Barrett
Yeah.
Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Robert Frost, and it's
Right.
I and I later later was able to appreciate those poets, but to me it's like I couldn't connect with them. It wasn't until
Mm.
like I learned about Maya Angelou and Langston Hughes, who talks a lot about the Black experience,
Right.
and
Connectable.
right,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, like this is amazing. This is what I need.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what, drew me to poetry. And I definitely know it was divine because, he has a plan for everything. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um, I like what you said about the connectability
mm,
because, you know, when you can see yourself, like
right.
this is why representation matters so much.
Hmm.
When there's a story and a narrative that you can't relate to, as amazing as it is, because Shakespeare is an amazing body of work, right?
Hmm.
Edgar Allan Poe, I enjoy
Hmm.
his work, right?
Hmm.
But I enjoy it, but I can't necessarily connect. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I can't put myself in. Well, you know what? I'm lying. A cask of Amontillado. Yeah, everybody got those friends. You got to watch them friends. But like maybe like Annabelle Lee. Like I can't
Mm,
see me you know but then there are other poets. There are other people, and it's not just a black or white thing.
right.
It's even certain women who are not black women, right?
Hmm.
They have a way of tapping into the woman experience, right? Certain men, for you, they may be able to tap into the man experience, or maybe people who are just from where you're from, right? Like
Hmm.
a poet from Newark, I you know so representation is everything. Having somebody to kind of stand in the gap, and you can look at them, like the little girl who was standing in front of the picture of Michelle Obama, and she was
Yeah.
just so amazed, and she could like see herself. She was like, she looks like me, you
Right.
know. And that's one of the reasons why artists are so important, because I feel like God created all of us, all different shades, all different nationalities, different everything, so that we all could have a voice and we all could be able to speak, because there's somebody just like us or in a similar situation where our voice is going to be so powerful because our voice looks like what they're living.
Hmm.
So, super sidebar audience, keep your eyes open, because throughout the broadcast, we're going to be popping up little fun facts about James all throughout, the bottom. So, just, keep your eyes peeled as we continue this conversation. So, James, so,
Hmm.
James, you talked about how you found, well, how poetry found you, rather. But, let's talk about that faith, because that faith walk, that's different,
Hmm.
knowing that you got a gift and then going to act on the gift. That's two totally different ball games, right? So, how did you find the faith to step into your artistry once you found, hey, this is poetry. I'm actually good at this. I actually like this. But how did you find the faith? Because you said you didn't see yourself as that poet. How how did you, like, even though you couldn't see it, how did you go ahead and be like, you know what, taking a chance?
Well, I never forget the moment. It started where I always say there's two um, time frames for a writer and for a writer of poetry. There's when a poet writes poetry, and then when a poet identifies themselves as a poet.
Mm,
So, like I said, I was always writing, um, but it wasn't until this moment where I was invited um, to perform poetry for a funeral for a childhood
mm,
friend
okay.
and his sister. They um, perished in a fire. Rest in peace. Um, when I was in high school, early high school, um, and I was called upon um, for my words to be words of comfort. And it was at that moment that I realized the true power of words, and that being a poet is there's a responsibility that comes along with it. You just can't say anything and be reckless.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be mindful of what you say, because words, like in the Bible, it says life and death is in the power of the tongue, and it's so true. But that moment, I really understood, you know, that poetry has life to it, and you can give life to other people even in the midst of darkness. And I'll never forget, after I finished performing, I got a standing ovation. It wasn't so much of the standing ovation, but it was more that I knew that I said something that changed something in the people, you know. And
Right.
even the mother came up. I'll never forget. The mother came up and embraced me, and and she was just so thankful for that moment. And I knew right then and there, like, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to say things that change people's minds, change people's spirit, change people's the way they think about life.
Right.
Um, it has to be, even when I'm being funny, there's still a message in there. Even when I may be using a bit of wordplay, there's still a message in the poem. There's always something that you can get out of it, and that's necessary for me. I have to, it has to be something that you can get from it. You know, but
Yeah.
that's when I knew, and and it would be something that, um, even when I had a dark time, when I didn't feel like writing anymore, it
Yeah.
would come back to me. God would be, I gave you this, knocking, waking me up
Gave
out of
you
sleep.
this.
You got to write these words. You're feeling something. You got to
Mm.
write these words. And um, you know,
Isn't that a part of your, that's a part of one of your pieces. You say that. You're like, you gotta write these words. I remember you
mhm.
doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's in Pain with No Chaser. Yeah,
Yes.
that's interesting that you mentioned that. Well, Pain with first of all, that was like the start of a change. Like a lot of my poems were about my feelings, um, me trying to make sense of the world and my place in it. But this poem was me reflecting on where I was at. It was very introspective. It was me being transparent and stripping the layers
Mm.
of what I've been through. So it was like the first poem where I said, you know what, I'm putting it on the table,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
and if I know it's going to help somebody by doing it.
Yeah.
So that line, yeah, that was reflecting on that moment where I
Yeah.
had those moments where I didn't want to write, and then all of a sudden, God is just hitting me with the words. You want to write these words. You
Like
want to
these
write them.
words.
you know, and,
Pain
thank
with No Chaser is,
you.
well, my favorite poem,
Mm. Oh
by
yeah,
you.
yeah,
But Pain with No Chaser has a special place for me because I connected with that piece so deeply that I went ahead and I wrote something behind that.
yeah. I
I
love it.
wrote shot glasses. I wrote it
Mm-hmm.
backwards
Mm-hmm.
using your title as the last line of that piece.
Yeah.
And that piece was the first piece that I actually remembered because of you.
See,
So
art
yeah.
inspires art. Art inspires art.
Yes, art definitely inspires art.
Mhm.
But you know, I want to talk about this book. I want to talk about this book. I want to talk about the name of this book because I literally just learned this about the name of Beyond the Event Horizon. Beyond the Event Horizon is the name of the book. Make sure you guys go get it. Put in your cart. All the details in the description. Do it today. So I learned something new the about the name of this book and like where it came from. Can you enlighten the people on what exactly, like, this was so deep? Can you enlighten the people on what the name of the book actually references?
Yes. It originally, there's a line in one of my poems. It's uh, a poem called "The One," and it was one of those poems where I was redefining what a woman, um, uh, what a love for a woman is all about. And in one of the lines, I say, "She is my new horizon at the end of an event horizon."
Mm,
And that really stuck with me, the event horizon, because what I'm talking about is the part of a black hole where matter is destroyed for the
Mhm.
most part. Um, they call it the point of no return. Um, and when I was trying to come up with a concept with a theme for my book, that theme kept resonating in me. That you know, um, there's a dark there's dark moments in our life where we can almost feel like we're going to be destroyed,
Yeah.
but through the process, through God's process, we can come out the other end a whole new individual, a being with purpose and vision. And that's what, you know, that's where I got the title from, going beyond the event horizon, beyond the point of destruction, beyond the point of where things look so dismal that, you don't even think you can come through, but you will always come through. All you got to do is, lean on him and seek him for guidance, and allow you to come out that other end a brand new, individual. And that's pretty much what the book is about. It's about my journey through that process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, your words really are the meat and potatoes for this right here. You said a lot, and I have a few questions that I feel like you've already answered, so we can just breeze right past those. But
Mm.
seeing as you've already answered those next three questions, um, what I want to touch on a little bit, we spoke about this when we talked, and I want you to talk a little bit about your love for science,
Yeah.
and you know the science versus Christianity thing.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
brought up a
like
point that
some
was
people. Oh,
so
I'm sorry.
cool. I'm
I
sorry.
didn't mean to cut you off. My geek mode was going
It's
on.
on. No, you brought up a point like I've never heard no one say this before. You said science is for the Thomases of the world who need to see and touch the wounds on Jesus's hand. And when I tell you, like if you weren't a poet before, after saying that line, oh yeah, 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 definitely a poet. Um, so help me, go forth, go forth. Let me get out your way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, science is for the people that need to know that God exists.
Right.
It's funny because some of science, would say otherwise, but
Mhm.
the more they try to know, they come up with even more roadblocks and more roadblocks. But the signs are all there. I mean, where does mathematics come from, which is the very principle of science? Where did that come from? Just just randomly out of nowhere, all these numbers that are in everything and in every object and in every um, uh, principle
Mm.
of what's out there in the universe, that all had to come from somewhere, you know and as science say, there always has to be a catalyst for creation.
Mhm.
So what is the catalyst? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Something, something has to always come from a source. You can't just create things out of nothing. you
Yeah.
know and so that's why I love science, because to me, like, I'm one of those Thomases. I need to touch it. I need to understand it. It has
Mhm.
to make sense to me. And unfortunately, sometimes it's not a good thing, and sometimes it is. Um, because faith is about trusting in the unknown. You know, and
Mhm.
that's a hard concept to even really grab your teeth on, because and that's one of the challenges of being a Christian, is having that faith in what you can't see. But you can't see some of the things that are out in the universe. You
Mm.
really can't see a black hole. You see what reacts around the
Yeah.
black hole. as things go into it, that's what you see. But you can't see a black hole. It's literally, you can't see it, with the naked eye. Um,
Mhm.
so there's you can't see when the wind blows. There's a scripture about that. You can't see when the wind blows. You just know there's effect when it comes through, like when it
Yeah.
brushes up against dirt, and then you're able to see it, but you really can't see wind, you know.
Yeah.
And how do you explain that? That's the beauty of science, and that's why I love it so much, because it kind of, puts in perspective of what's around us and the beauty of what God has created around us and how it all has synchronization and a balance. And even when things seem chaotic, there's a balance. There's a beautiful balance. So,
You're very passionate about your love for science, and it's really fascinating like listening to you talk about it because I I didn't understand something and I literally like asked you a question and you broke it down like outside of this interview, but like I asked you a question, you broke it down so perfectly to the point that now I completely understand it. So this wasn't a question that we rehearsed, but where did this love for science come from?
high school, I loved a lot of the experiments that we would, do in order to, show how things, react in this world, how things, are catalysts in this world. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That's Newton's law, and Newton's law of motion. And I mean that amazes me,
Yeah.
because I'm a very inquisitive person. I love to know the unknown,
Hmm.
even though they're just things that it's impossible to know everything. And
It's true.
we saw in the scriptures what happened. The people, that build the
Yeah.
Tower of Babel,
Yep.
um, they thought they knew everything, and God had to bring them down a step, to humble themselves, because they even thought themselves beyond God. We don't need God anymore. We got this huge
Hmm.
tower. You know,
It was like, well, if we need God, we could just walk up to him on the tower.
exactly. And
Hmm.
um, but so there's things that we're just not gonna know, and even when we come to that day, even when we meet Him, there's just things that are not meant for us to know. You know, but to me, it's exciting to understand what God allows us to understand, because it brings us one step closer to Him. You know, so
Yeah.
that's why I love science. Yeah.
By any chance, would you ever like it's just a random question. Would you ever like teach like if there was a science camp or something like that? Cuz I don't know like how you feel about like actual like classroom teaching being
Mhm.
stuck to a curriculum, but would you like ever teach kids in an enrichment program who are interested in science?
This, let me tell you how God works. This is crazy right now. I literally had this conversation with another poet literally today. She
Wow.
asked me if I was a teacher, and I told her no. She was like, you really have this thing about you. Like,
Mhm.
I see that in you. It's obvious that is in you. And I
Yeah.
said, I told her so many people tell me that and ask me that. So, yeah, this is and she even gave me some information about how there's programs out there for more black males to be, to acquire them into the school system.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is confirmation, even more confirmation that I need to definitely pursue it. And that can be an area um, that I definitely know I would love and have success in. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what this platform is for,
Mm.
bringing the truth to the forefront. So maybe that might be a part of your next assignment, part of your next
Yeah.
journey. I don't know. Hopefully, the
Yeah.
educator in me seeing the educator in you, and yeah. But
Thank you.
being with that said, especially with this being the a Father's Day episode, I'd like to take a moment to just speak to Black educators and Black male educators at that. Y'all are so important.
Yeah.
Black male educators and male educators in general, you're so, so important because a lot of our children um, don't really have that present, strong male
Yeah.
influence in their life. And sometimes a teacher, a principal, shout out to Akbar Cook in Newark, New Jersey, you
Mm,
know, an administrative staff member can come along and sort of help to fill that gap. And it's really necessary that we have that, and then we have males who want to step in and be there, like want to be there. There's a lot of teachers, unfortunately, who they don't want to be there, they don't care. So
yeah.
the
Yeah.
more people that we can get that really do love the children, want to see them better, the better people we're going to be producing for society. And I do encourage, if there are men out there watching and you're thinking about getting into the educational field, please understand that on this Father's Day, we need classroom fathers,
Yeah.
real classroom fathers who want to stand in the gap and be there for our kids, not just educationally, but just your presence means so much.
Mm,
So, yeah, with that being said, oh, and before I get into this, I'm going to ask you to grab your book because we want to hear some of your work. We definitely want to hear some of your work. There's a poem that I'm requesting. Okay, you already know. But before we get into that,
mm,
this fun fact, I've been letting these fun facts just kind of just run underneath us, and people can read them at will. But this one, I want to talk about this one because this was a big, big deal.
yeah.
So, Fraser Kane, the publisher of Universe Today, that's a big deal. That's a big
Mm,
deal. Like, you literally got this person to allow you to use your audio, like on the Pulsar album. For those of you who don't know, the Pulsar album is James's work, as you can see right there. So it's his work, and it's a collection of poetry put behind amazing, amazingly talented vocalists. Other artists have come together to collaborate on the project. The music behind the project, it's really a work of art, and James put a lot of time and effort into creating it, and along with the back work of putting together the album release, like he just went in super professional, and he really handled business because Fraser Kane, like I said, is the publisher of Universe Today, and he reached out to him and was able to get him to like add a contribution to the album. I think that's really a boss move. That's kind of cool. So shout out
Yeah.
to you, James, for taking, initiative over your project and saying, you know what, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. I don't care who it is. It could be Beyonce. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to hit him up. I'm going to get him on the project. You know, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Very big deal.
How
He
did it
didn't have to do it.
feel?
Yeah. He didn't have to do it at all. And but he does what he does because he's passionate about science too,
Yeah.
and getting the word out about science, and um, getting new enthusiasts. So that he saw it as an opportunity to gain new
Yeah.
followers, and interested minds in science as well. So I'm thankful to him, for allowing me to use the the excerpt that I used, or the soundbite that I use, is from his docu series "What Is a Pulsar."
Hmm.
It was a question posed to him from one of his fans, and it's a beautiful documentary, um, a docu series about Pulsar. So, check that out. You can look
Oh,
it up
yeah,
on YouTube,
definitely.
and it's an amazing, amazing, amazing content.
Well, don't worry, guys. We got you. Links in the description.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, James, you're amazing. We want to hear that poem. Please give us Estranged. I'm going to get out the way and let you rock out.
Okay. Papa was a rolling stone. He would roll his stones into a few homes and leave behind disenfranchised lives from the United States to South Korea. He fought in the Korean War, just another war that didn't make sense. Didn't have enough time or sense to qualify for Father of the Year. Just years and years of hate amongst mothers, of half brothers and half sisters not knowing each other, and him not even knowing if one child bear his last name. I can barely remember when he last came, not even to see me take my bride. I cried many times as a child, but my pen runs wild in pain, trying to hold on to good moments in vain. But God forgives. I'm finally coming to grips with having to live, barely knowing a father, and him really not knowing me. Too many empty promises were left with a child next to unfilled luggage and unfilled days. In many ways, my mind was filled with neglect, and he wonders why I don't call much. It's because my feelings can't connect. Or let the sins of my father's past be the sins today or any day. And I'm no Anubis, so I can't weigh his heart on a scale. But where he failed, I must succeed. To live a life just to breed and not work hard to feed your kids is no life to lead. Not being there to see your child grow up is not sowing a good seed. I can never hate you, just like I can't make you work on making things right. That's not my fight. I just have to bite my pride. Jesus died for me so I don't have to die inside. And I have to do more on this earth than just buy my time. I must ride out the typhoon and stay steadfast like a pontoon, for even monsoons have to cease. This is not a diss poem. This is my release. Estranged.
First of all, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. You guys can see why I wanted him to read that piece. It's so full. It's rich. It says so many things. And on a day like today, being Father's Day, it is a poem that a lot of us, for different reasons, can relate to. Um, this piece, see, this is where the true core of faith and art really is. Not just a platform, but literally faith and art. Art, poetry, music, anything with words has such a power that it can change situations, circumstances, literally move mountains. And James, I'm going to ask you just to kind of like talk a little bit about what this piece of art did for you and your relationship with your father.
Yeah, it's definitely a testament to um, God's hand and how sometimes He'll do things you don't even see coming. You know, um, I remember talking to my wife and um, we were having a conversation about you know my feelings about not having my father in my life at the time, and and she asked me one day, I'll never forget it. She asked me like, "What are you looking for?" And I told her, I said, I want an apology. I just want him to be accountable um, for not being there when I needed him the most. And she looked at me and she said, "Well, what if you don't get it? You know, what then?" And it hit me like a ton of bricks because I never really thought about that question. And she could see that the wheels were turning in my head. And then she told me, she said, "Write about it."
Mm.
And that was, to me, I know that was God working through her because the chain of events that would happen after that just blew my mind. So I did. I wrote Estranged, as you heard, from my book. And to me, that chapter was closed. It was me getting everything out. And like I said, it wasn't meant to tear him down. It was just letting him know, you know, what, um, how I felt, because I needed to express that. And I honestly didn't know if he was ever going to read it, but when he learned, that I wrote a book of poetry, he wanted a copy. So I knew that poem was in the book. So I was like, oh boy, here we go.
Mm.
You know. So I sent him a copy, and a week went by, and I didn't hear anything. And I'll never forget, he called me, and he started out saying, he said, I read your book, and he said, I couldn't put it down. He said, I learned so much about you that I never even knew. And he said, before I even say anything more, I want to apologize for all the pain that I caused you.
Mm.
And I mean, you can't tell me that that's not God. You can't tell me that's not God. You know, he knew what I needed. He knew, and he knew the way to get it. I never would have fathomed that a poem would, be the very would create the very thing that I always wanted. To me, it was just me getting it out and me closing it and being able to forgive him at that point.
Mm.
Because I can't ask for forgiveness and not forgive. That's a requirement. That's what Jesus requires of us. Is to be, to forgive as we are forgiven. You know, and for him to just acknowledge that meant the world to me. And it began, um, you know, um, a small time of trying to rekindle a relationship that was lost.
Mm.
And to be transparent, when I lost him, I was thankful to God that we had that moment. We were able to cross that bridge before he
Right.
passed,
Mm.
um, because it makes it a little easier. Um, it's not, you know, I'm not trying to simplify it, because it's not, there's not a moment where I don't feel a little gypped. Um, but I'm glad that God gave me that, and that's motivation and comfort, that we were able to heal. You know,
Yeah.
um, even if it was for a small time. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Wow. If you don't mind me asking,
Hmm.
when did that happen? Like
He
what?
passed away last year. He
Well,
passed
no.
away last year.
What year were you guys able to have this connection? What
Oh,
year?
that was, yeah, that was like, the book came out 2018,
Mm.
and it was already out maybe about 6 7 months after that, and that's when um, I sent the
Mm.
copy to him. So it was in 2018, and I would have never thought that he would pass away, but that's why we really have to live our life, um, the best way that God allows us to live,
Yeah.
and cherish every moment, every day, because it's not promised. It's
Mm.
not promised, and that's why you gotta love the people, even when it might be difficult to love them,
Yes. Very
because you
true.
never know. You never know. You never know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to finally get that closure,
Mm.
like what doors did that open for you?
Well, it allowed me honestly to see some things within, you know, just me. Like, I always had a problem with connecting with male figures, and
Mm.
that's why, because of that. I was still suffering from that pain, and I'm, don't get me wrong, I'm still dealing with it, but God's helping me through it. It's
Absolutely.
allowing me to build better connection with male figures. So that's what it allowed me to do. It allowed me to tap into um, another side of me, um, a side that I was denying for a long time. Dealing with the pain, you have to deal with pain head on.
Yeah.
You can't put it in a box. You can't, um, and you're not alone. That's the thing. You're not alone dealing with it. You're not alone. You have a father that loves you and, you know, cares about you, cares about the cares of your heart, cares about your well being. Um,
Mm,
and, you know, let him, take on the burden. Let him, you know, feel that void um, in
yeah.
your life. And it will really um, do some dynamic things in your life. And because of that, I was able to experience some moments in my life that I never even would have dreamed of. I never even would have thought was possible. But through him, all things are possible. All things work for the good that of those who believe,
Yes.
you know, and are
Absolutely.
in Christ Jesus. Very true, very true. You know,
Yeah. That's a fantastic story, honestly. Um, it's beautiful. Like again, I cannot extend my condolences enough to you in your loss. I don't That's a hard one. It is a hard one. But I thank God for that golden opportunity. We might not have known the time frame, but God did, and He
hmm
always works things out kind of in the nick of time. So yes, my deepest condolences to you. But yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And I thank you for being transparent and choosing to speak about that. I know that it's not an easy conversation,
yeah,
and with today being Father's Day, I know it's not the best moment right now. You probably didn't expect to be, having this conversation, but I thank you for being open, being transparent, and allowing yourself to, just kind of be out there and hopefully be someone else's um like light at the end of the tunnel, because there are people today who still have their father, and you telling your story, hopefully it will inspire some kind of rekindling a relationship between someone and their dad while they have the time to do it. Thank you, James.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about Pulsar.
Mm,
Now, Pulsar is your baby for real. And it's an amazing project. It really is an amazing project, a well put together project. You've had amazing people work on this project, Uninvited and I Am Mega. They really did their thing putting this together with you and all of the other artists that contributed. It was phenomenal.
yeah.
So, let's talk about the conception of Pulsar. Like, how did this idea come about? For those of us who don't know what Pulsar is, let me go in one more time. Pulsar is James Ellerbe's collection of poetry. It's not just a album with him just running down poetry. It is literally a soundtrack. It is music. You got your theatrics. You got other poets putting down amazing bars. It's a lot. And if you don't know, get to know. Please make sure you purchase Pulsar today. The link is in the description. So please, James, talk about the conception of Pulsar. How did it come to be?
Wow. Um, well, I knew after coming out with Beyond the Event Horizon, I wanted a follow up because there was a lot of poems that um, didn't make the book, and I felt like um, they needed their voice. They needed to be out there in the
Mm,
world. And believe it or not, my initial plan was to produce a follow up book
Mm.
after that, which would contain a lot of the poems that didn't make the initial book. But I was having a conversation with um, fellow poet, uninvited, and I was talking. We just randomly got on the subject of. Um, I think I remember he asked me why I never came out with a CD or with an album rather,
Mm.
and I told him like I didn't have the right elements. Everything wasn't aligned at the time for me to produce an album. And I'll never forget. He looked at me and he goes, "I'll produce your album." And then I'd like pause for a second. I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why did I never think about that? Because I knew he produced his own album, and so I was very familiar with his work, but it
Right.
didn't dawn on me for some reason why I couldn't reach out and say, "Hey, can you produce my album?" So to me, that was like evident. Okay, God is working. He's working something. I don't know what he's about to do, but he's about to do something. And so me being once again a lover of science, and me sitting back and thinking about the concept, what would be the concept of this album. I knew I wanted to be a concept album, but um, I wasn't sure yet of where I was going to go. And then I saw the docu series you mentioned earlier about Fraser Kane on what is a pulsar.
Yeah.
It was breaking down, this um, phenomenon in the universe. Most stars, when they collapse or they
Mm.
explode into themselves. They collapse into themselves, and if they have enough force behind them, they can become a black hole. But if they don't have enough force behind them, they become a neutron star, and then they start to spin. And as they're spinning, they give off a radio wave. And initially, um, scientists were hearing these anomalies in the universe, um, and they were wondering what they were, and they
Like,
even thought they were
hearing
signals.
them,
Huh?
hearing
Yeah, hearing
sound.
them, because as they were listening to the sounds of the cosmos, they would hear these signals,
Hmm.
and they
Okay.
thought they were signals from from aliens, not knowing that what they were actually listening to at the time were from these phenomenon in the universe called pulsars, and
Mm.
each one has a distinct signature. Each one, like some are very slow, like very very synchronized, you know, and then there's some that move so fast. I mean, like, zzz, and but each one has their distinct radio wave, their distinct signature.
Mm.
And I thought about that. I said, that's what I want this album to be. I want each poem and each track to have its own vibe, to have its own pulse, you know, like a pulsar. And
Yeah.
it's pulsar.
And it definitely is that. Well, you just keep on teaching me. I don't know, maybe I should just talk to you more often because you keep teaching me more and more things. You see my face. I'm like, wait, you mean like sound is making sound? Is out there in space making sound?
Yeah. Sometimes
First
you
of all,
can,
that is really cool. Can we hear
sometimes,
that on YouTube? Like, do they have they recorded? Like,
yeah. Oh,
are we
yeah.
that advanced?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
can, if you YouTube
I'm gonna look
pulsar
that up.
sounds, you'll hear, and a lot, at the time, you probably can't hear them now because there's so much, information going over the radio. But you can used to listen to a station. Like when they first discover them, they discover them through the radio
Mhm.
frequencies.
Wow.
So you can literally hear them um, through your radio, through your car radio. Now, probably not so much because it's just flooded with,
We got too
with
much going on.
too much going on, too many stations. But on these dead air channels, you know, back in the day, you could pick up these sounds coming way out into space because radio waves travel. They travel far distances. We're actually sending radio waves out into
Mhm.
space, and hoping that we get a signal back, you know. But yeah,
Wow. That's kind of cool. That's
yeah.
kind of cool. And honestly, I've never ever been into science. Science was like, outside of math, science was like my least favorite. But you make it sound kind of cool. You,
One a
you
good
do.
person who I follow, phenomenal astrophysicist by the name, and also a black man by
Mhm.
the name of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Mhm.
Um, Very informative. He breaks it down to that level where anybody can understand. I actually mentioned him in my
Mhm.
book Beyond the Event Horizon, because he has inspired me so much with his program called Star Talk. You can look that
Mhm.
up on YouTube, Star Talk, and very interesting conversations, that come from him.
Okay. Okay, that's kind of cool. I might have
Yeah.
to go ahead and look into that. You
Mhm.
only know what you know. You
It's
don't
true.
know what you don't know. So I might have to expand myself a little bit. So, so, hmm, sidebar, right?
Hmm.
Which piece, which one of your pieces, like just in general, not only on Pulsar, but which one of your pieces best connects with you?
That connects with me. It's a toss up between two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you actually have it on the screen. One of them, which is I Got a Date with the Devil, um, because as it says, it took me 5 years to write. It's one of the most transparent pieces that I ever written. Very revealing. I'm very proud of that piece because um, it almost didn't make the book, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it's originally in the book, and once I got it in the book and I got feedback, it inspired me to put it on the album as well.
Yeah.
But
Well,
mhm.
why did it not almost make the book? Like, how did almost not make it in there?
It's very, very revealing. It talks about something that I struggled with. I'm not afraid to mention it now,
Mm-hmm.
but I had an addiction to strip clubs, and it talks about one of those moments and me feeling just totally unlike myself,
Yeah.
and but me knowing there's got to be something out there to help me. Um, and I wanted to share that dark moment, um, what was going through my mind. And I use a metaphor as, me having a date with it. And that's kind of what it was. It was me, you know, opening the door and getting closer to destruction, you know, whereas I use it as a metaphor um, of, this person being the devil, but I actually that's not what I'm referring to. I'm actually referring to the devil within me
Mm.
that I wanted to get out, and I know I needed to get out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very difficult to talk about that. So that's why it took me so long, because I was still dealing with the guilt of what happened. But I knew I had to share it, and thank God that I did, because to have you know um, other brothers come up to me and say, I'm happy that someone's finally talking about this, that
Yeah.
I've been struggling with this, and thank you, I needed this,
Mm.
and I'm getting that a lot through this piece and this healing, um, to a lot of young men out there. So I know it was meant for me to share that, that God wanted me to go there. He wanted me to peel back the layers and say, look, I was broken too. I
Yeah.
was there too, you know, but you don't have to suffer. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I'm really loving this transparency that you have. You know, um, you're a real one. You're not afraid to be open and just be honest about whatever it is, and that's why a lot of people do gravitate towards you. So,
Before we go in, I failed to mention the second one because I said it was a toss up. The other
oh,
one
yeah,
is
right.
Strange Matter. Um,
Strange Matter was so good.
Strange Matter is I like to call it the modern day, Billie Holiday Strange Fruit.
Oh,
I'm playing off of that Strange Matter, but
yeah.
I'm bringing it to modern days. Still talking about the same thing she's talking about, but
Hmm.
bringing it to the modern days and dealing with, the injustice that we're facing, due to the police shootings, of unarmed black men and women. I tackled that head on. That one is another one that meant a lot to me, because it was. And if I can share the story because it's very very important to me. Um, I was asked during the time that this is what during the time where the shootings were happening back to back, and every time everywhere you turn there was another name. Sandra Bland, you know, um, Eric Gardner, and the names just keep coming. Philando Castile, but that's the one that hit me the hardest. Philando Castile,
Hmm.
because he was murdered. Um, by a police officer in front of his fiance, and his daughter was in the back seat.
Yeah.
And that, honestly, that shook me. That, I'm going to be honest with you, that even shook my faith. Because I'm like,
Mm.
God, they're killing us even in front of our loved ones. And
Oof.
I never forget. I had a moment with my wife, and she started to feel it too. Because she was worried about me. That could be me. That could
Mm.
be me in the car. And I'll never forget someone who's a fan of my work asked me, "What are you going to say about this? You got to say something." You know, but at the time I was just so angry. I was just filled with angry, confusion, you know, sadness. I just didn't have the words. And one day I came across this program. It came on the Discovery Channel, the universe, and they were talking about this theoretical matter in the universe called strange matter, and how it's very powerful. It's the most theoretical. Theoretically, it's the most dominant matter in the universe. So
Mm.
much so that anything that comes into contact with it either gets destroyed or it consumes it into itself to become itself. And
Mm.
I was like, that's kind of like us as black people. Like, we are in everything. Um, we don't. Some of us don't know it. That a lot of mathematics, science, a lot of these inventions and um, you know uh, systems have come from our people. You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
everywhere you turn, we are influencing culture.
Hmm.
It all comes from us. Um,
So,
and I was like, yeah, we're strange matter. We're strange matter, and that's where the title came from. So check it out. It's
oh yeah, please.
phenomenal. Shout out to I Am Omega, who does a phenomenal job on the chorus. He's the engineer behind the whole project, and he just shows you his hip hop chops as well on that as well. So
Yeah.
check that out.
Mega was just all around amazing. He was behind the scenes, he was in front of the scenes, he was just doing so much, and I really appreciate him on that project. I really appreciate everyone that you brought onto the project, because
Yeah,
every person, every voice,
yeah,
all, like you said about Pulsar, they all have their own signature, they all have their own
mm,
flavor that they brought to the pot. and it just makes it such a richer end result, you know.
Yeah.
So let's play a game. Okay,
Okay.
let's play a game.
Hmm.
Now, I like to call this Pulsar popcorn.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say the name. I'm gonna say the name of I'm gonna say the name of a piece, and
Hmm.
you have to tell me. Okay, you have to tell me. Now you already did Strange Matter and
Hmm.
Date with the Devil, of course, so that
Hmm.
won't be it. So I'm
Hmm.
gonna do three.
Okay.
Um, so you have to tell me how long did it take you to write it?
Hmm.
What place did you write it from?
Okay.
And what impact did this piece of art have on you?
Okay.
All
Okay.
right. And got you have 30 seconds for
Whew.
each.
Okay. Oh goodness. You're gonna
Yep,
do
you
that
have
to a
30
poet?
seconds for each. So
You
one
know
more
poets
time.
are wordy.
So one more time. We had three times to do this. Three
Okay.
times to do this, right?
Oh goodness.
And you
Okay.
have to tell me how long it took you to write the piece.
Hmm.
What place were you when you wrote the piece? You could take that however you want that, right? What place were you when you wrote the piece? And
Hmm.
what impact did this piece of art have on you? All right.
Okay. All
30
right.
seconds on the clock.
Okay.
All right. So, you ready?
I'm ready. I hope so.
No haiku.
No haiku. Yeah, that took me about took me. It was within an hour. Not
Mm,
sure the exact time. Um, it's a satire poem about me at the time being frustrated with writing haikus, trying to fit all these words in 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables. So it's 3 lines, 5, 7, 5. And one of
you
the
got
most
4
challenging
seconds.
poems.
Three,
One of the most challenging poems.
two, one. So for no haiku, you
Mhm.
have 2 out of 3. You got 2 out of 3 of the questions.
Ah,
Cool.
ah, man, man.
I'm gonna let you know
I
when we get
mean,
to the 5 seconds. When you see my hand,
okay.
that's when we're at 5.
So what is
Okay.
it? How long? How long?
Yes.
Where
How
was
long
I?
did it take you to write
Oh, and
it?
how, oh yeah, and what did it do for me? That's the one I want.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God. All right. Okay.
All right. The next one.
Okay.
I really like this one too.
Hmm.
Let me see. Hmm. This one my favorite. I feel like I'm kind of biased on this one, but I feel like you already know I'm gonna ask you this one, so I'm not gonna ask you this one. So,
Okay. Okay.
um, contemplation.
Okay. That um took me a couple of days, and it's a erotic poem without being vulgar. And it allowed me to tap into a side that I normally I don't tap into a lot,
Mm-hmm.
um, and show people, like a lot of people don't know, like the Bible has some of the most beautiful erotic pieces in Songs of Solomon. So like I wanted to kind of give that an example of that, and it allowed me to tap into
You
that.
got 2 out of 3 again.
I should have allowed
No,
me to
no,
tap
no.
into
You know what?
the
That time you got it. You got it. I'm
side
just
of
because at the last second it was like, and that's what it did for me.
me.
You got that one.
Okay.
Okay. So I think we might do another one. We might do okay, we'll do a bonus one. So
Hmm.
yeah. Uh Close Encounter. Then
Okay.
after this we'll do another one. All right, ready? Go.
Uh, okay. Close Encounter took me within about an hour. And it's me like using through the metaphor of aliens coming to abduct me to show me who I am. Like sometimes other people will show you who you are. So it's
Hmm.
me playing off that and it allowed me to step outside the box and be creative, but give a message at the same time. So that's what it allowed me to
You know what? You got that one with 2 seconds on the clock. You're getting good.
I'm starting to get the hang of
Yeah,
it.
that's really good though. You were able to
Mhm.
write that in an hour. That's
Yeah,
sometime. Well, I mean, sometime it flows up out of you. Like
yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So this is our bonus one, our bonus popcorn.
Okay,
So cell phones and relationships.
okay. Whew. Well, cell phone in relationship, that took me a little time. That was a couple of months, and it deals with how we, especially men specifically, how we look for superficial things in our partners,
Hmm.
and how we should focus on the things that mean the most. And it allowed me to use a personification style kind of poem, which I don't do a lot of, and that's what it did for me.
I really wanted you to finish our last sentence. And technically, that was a 2 out of 3, but
uh,
we're gonna give you that.
uh,
We're gonna give you that one.
I don't like explain.
Oh man,
No, I like to, poets like to explain stuff,
they do.
Oh man.
But you did a good job explaining it, and I feel like um, from what you did explain, it gives the audience really an overview and a little deeper look into your work. Um, yeah. So again, audience, if you have not already purchased the Pulsar album, you need to go ahead and do that. All the links will be below. If you have not bought the book Beyond the Event Horizon, that link will be below. If you're not subscribed to this channel right here, I don't know what you're doing. Hit subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications. And run on over to James's channel as well. Subscribe to him. He has videos of all kind of performances, live performances. Some of his audio is over there. Like you really get a chance to enjoy the artists. So definitely support your local artists and subscribe to our YouTube channels. Okay, we're working hard out here. So James, let me ask you. There's so much more to talk about, honestly.
Mhm.
But I feel like we are running into a part 2.
Yeah.
And this is something that we did discuss. This is definitely something that we talked about. So guys, we are prepared to give you a part 2. Been James has been such a wealth of knowledge, information. You got everything from a testimony, you got deliverance, you got family counseling happening in this episode, you got a science lesson. Like this was a very full episode. um but the last question I want to ask you before we begin to wind it down a little bit, and I know you have another piece, I want to hear
Mhm.
your other piece.
Okay.
So before we begin to wind it down a little bit, can you talk to me a little bit about when you first found Christ?
Yeah. As I stated before, like within my family, they've always been, deeply rooted in Christianity, specifically Pentecostal Christianity. Um, but I always didn't feel like at the time I um, was ready. A lot of people say I'm not ready. I got a lot of stuff to get, to give up and and change before. And that's not what God wants. God, Jesus said, "Come as you are." But I remember there would be always somebody in my life that would um, try to bring me to God's love. And I thank God for that because they were constant reminders of, you have a place here. I have a mission for you. You're important. And it wasn't until I realized that I was just tired of running. I was tired. And I'll never forget this moment. I told you before that I was addicted to strip clubs, and I was in a strip club, and this was like the lowest point that I ever got to. And
Mm.
um, I was drinking, and I just started to cry profusely. I'm at the bar, and out of nowhere, this was like a rinky dink kind of club. They had like a jukebox. They would play music out of the jukebox. And out of nowhere, and I still to this day, because jukebox, back then, um, you have to put quarters in and you have to choose the song that
Yeah.
comes out of the jukebox. No one chose this song. No one put money into the jukebox and chose this song. I know for a fact because it was right in front of me.
Mm.
And out of nowhere came this song from Creed called
Mm.
um, uh, six. I know the chorus. Hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking
Oh yeah.
maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. When I heard that song, I'm like, he's talking to me. That's where I am right there at that moment. There's a line he says, I cry out, heaven save me, but I'm down to one last breath. That's what I felt. I felt like this was it. I had enough. I was ready to cash in my chips and
Mm.
not saying not the way God wants me to. You know what I'm saying? And at that moment,
Mm.
I heard his voice in that song talking to me, you know, that I'm here. I'm here for you
Yeah.
in a strip club of all places. God will show up in places you can't even imagine.
Oh yeah.
And I knew, and I'll never forget, the bartender was looking at me because she saw me crying profusely, and she looked at me and she was like, "What's wrong?" And I told her, I said, I'm not supposed to be here." And she looked at me in the eye, took my drink and pulled it to her, and then she told me, "So then go." Now think about that. Why would a bartender tell me to go?
Mm-hmm.
That's their job, is to get you liquored up and spending more money.
Yeah.
He told me, then go. And I
Mm.
got up, and I have never been in a strip club ever since.
Hmm. God will pull you out of some things that we can't pull ourselves out of.
Yeah.
I was listening to a sermon. A pastor was preaching a couple weeks ago, and he was like, stop you. God will stop you from doing the things that you wouldn't otherwise let go of.
Yeah.
Vicky Winans kind of says it best in Safe in His Arms when she says that He'll give me the strength to do what honors Him the most.
Mm. Hmm.
It's not easy. And
Yeah.
sometimes, honestly, it's not even what we want to do. Because sometimes, let's not even lie, sin be good. Sometimes we don't want to let go of that thing. We don't want to move from that group of people. We don't want to stop living doing whatever it is, whatever your situation is, even if it's nothing like that we look at as bad. Maybe your something is being a procrastinator, and God said, do that business, write
Yeah.
that book,
Hmm.
teach that class, but you're just like doing what you want to do, like, or even if you saying quit that job, you're like, well, nah, this is my security, I need this. God will give us the strength to
Yeah.
do the things that honors Him the most,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard, but He has a way of kind of making it easy for us,
Yeah.
showing us, nudging us, in that right direction. And your story is beautiful. you
Mm.
know I love to hear believers talk about their story of when they first met God, because every one of them is a little bit different. And
Yeah,
I love the non-traditional ones. I know people that say I got saved in church and filled with Holy Ghost at the altar. That's cool. But I love the nitty-gritty. He pulled me up out the crack house. He pulled me up out the strip club. He pulled me up out, you know, people that got a story behind that testimony. And I really enjoy those. I enjoy
yeah.
them for real. Now, James, you have something to share with us. You have another piece that you want to add to the pot, and we want to hear it. So I'm gonna get out the way, and I'm gonna let you rock out because this piece is a little heavy. This is not your usual James Ellerbe. Oh, apparently it is. I don't know. Like he says, he's been doing it quite often. He's been performing this piece, but I haven't been in Jersey for a minute, so you know. So you guys enjoy this next piece by James Ellerbe. Again, if you are not subscribed to his YouTube channel, please run over there and do that. Check the link below for all of his products and merchandise so you can support this artist. Go ahead, James. It's all you.
I want to die. I want to die in words. I want to die in words so I may rise on the third day after my betrayal of plagiarism, to be rewritten after a crown of thorns. Please don't mourn me after my death. This old vessel of nouns, adjectives, and verbs no longer serve their purpose. I want to capture a mind in the rapture of my hereafter. Like the moment the words are used, they are the beginning of that never ending possibility. I want the silly to be simply complex in context, a convex of conceptualism, a multitude of isms beyond realism. I want to die in a surrealism. Don't be fooled in thinking this poem is just a string of words with meaningless meanings. For I died in words before. I've been to that other side. And it was at that other side that I felt more alive than I ever been. I want to be the fisher of pens. I want to die in words. Let the dead bury the dead. Let every lead tip turn to ink tip. So every drip on paper be everlasting like the universe itself. Let my words be a wealth of literacy. No need for my old words to follow me in death, for this will not be the end of the me to be. I want to die in words till my thought drains empty. I want to die in words so I may live again, so they may have purpose propelled 7 levels above worthless. Let my words be what it takes to circumvent their circumstance, to dance with God and say, sorry, not my song to the devil. Leave him there, right there, center floor. He already wore his defeat when I first learned to write and speak. Now I speak these words that were written at the top of Mount Sinai to later die in a tree dripped in blood so that my old words can set us free. The only thing that I have control of are these words, and even that is an illusion. For words guided by the all knowing know there is nothing new under the sun, and the light will always illuminate what I write. But here's the revelation: the only solution to this literary degradation, the only emancipation unworthy of my earthly manacles, is for me to die so that I may live in words. Thank you. Thank you for listening. God bless.
Thank you, James. Thank you for everything. Thank you for that piece. Thank you for your transparency, your realness. Thank you for coming on this platform tonight, and just giving us everything, everything,
Thank you for having me.
continuing to give us everything as we roll into part two. Um, I can't, I'm grateful for everybody, who gives this platform time, everybody who comes in here with an amazing story and an amazing testimony. Each and every one of y'all stories are super valuable to the kingdom and to all the people who will watch these videos, so thank you.
Yeah.
One thing that I like to do, one thing that I need to do, right, in every single episode, of course, is redirect people back to source. So when doing that, I always like to leave off with some sort of scripture, some sort of biblical story that kind of coincides with what we're talking about. Now, for those of you who were looking at the flyer and you're like, okay, but it says, no mistakes, no do-overs. Um, I feel like we have covered that without even mentioning that, because as you can tell from James's testimony, you know, there are so many mistakes and left turns when it should have been right turns, and things that we as humans will do, things that we are capable of, things that we'll fall short of ourselves, let ourselves down, you know. And the reason why no mistakes, no do-overs was the quote that was chosen is because, well, James is like in love with Marvel and superheroes and things of that nature. And I really wanted to theme what we were talking about around that. But I feel like God kind of moved us in a little bit of a different direction. So we're going to revisit that as well as some major Marvel quotes in part two. So definitely come back and check us out in part two, because then we're gonna tap into that comic book James Ellerbe. So so you know, no mistakes, no do-overs was something that I believe Captain America said to the team. But we're here to dispel that myth that will always be mistakes. But with God, with Jesus, there's always an infinite do-over, you know. He's got your back, no matter what mistake. And that's really what we're here to tell y'all. That's what we're here to encourage you with. Out of everything that you've heard tonight, no matter where you are and how low you may think, right? Um, there's always a redemptive power. There's always something to bring you back, and not just to your former glory, but to even better. And this is where our story leaves us, right? So there's a part in John, right? John 14, verse 11 through 12. And it reads, "Believe me that I am child, I'm sorry. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else me for the very work's sake. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also. And greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father." So, what this is saying, this is Jesus speaking in John 14 and telling the people, hey, look, believe in me, believe, I'm from the Father. And if anything, let my works speak for me. Let my works, let you know that what I'm saying is true,
Right.
and he takes it a step further, letting us know that as his followers, as his believers, as his modern day disciples, that will do even a greater work. And that sounds crazy because, like, who's going to do a greater work than Jesus? Those that carry the message on through our work. Literally, literally, this is a faith in art platform. What we do is work.
Mm-hmm.
Our books, our CDs, our poetry, our songs, this is the work, and as artists, we literally leave a carbon footprint behind with the books, the stories, the songs, the things that we create and we leave, that even when we're gone, our work, just like Jesus said, right? Our work will continue to do even greater than us. Um, let me just pull modern day people, right? So like Pop Smoke, right? Pop
Mm-hmm.
Smoke, you're familiar. So he passed away. Unfortunately, he died, and his work went on to get finished.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that album was not out when he was alive. And we saw a lot of, I mean, everybody heard, welcome to the party and all that, and that's kind of like what our first taste of Pop Smoke was, unless you was really following him from before he took off. But as you listen, if you listen to the album, I know this is left field, but I'm a realist. If you listen to the album, you hear a different version of this artist. You hear more of his work, and you kind of wonder like what he would be saying, if he was still here. But his work goes on beyond him.
Mm-hmm.
Artists like Tupac, his work goes on beyond him. Artists like Michael Jackson, he did amazing things in his lifetime, did so much, like, but his work still continues to go on generations beyond him.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Luther King, his work did what it did at the time of him being alive, but then beyond that, you know, his work continued.
Mm-hmm.
You have, and you being, a science person, you have those women who, worked in NASA. It's a movie that Taraji
Mm-hmm.
Henson and
Hidden, yeah,
Janelle
hidden.
Monáe,
What is it?
yeah,
Hidden figures. Hidden
Hidden
figures. Yeah,
Figures,
yeah.
those women, their
Mm-hmm.
work that they did all those years ago
Yeah.
still continues to go on today with
Mm-hmm.
modern day scientists and astronauts and people who are even able to detect, the sound waves of pulsars. Like, had it not been for people like that and all the other people who did the groundwork for NASA,
Mm-hmm.
you know, their work goes on today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is a real be like Jesus moment, and let your work continue.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say, James? You say let your words be a monument for you.
Let your words be a monument to you. Yeah, yeah.
Let your words be a monument for you.
Let
And
let your dreams, excuse me, let your dreams
your
be a monument for you.
dreams.
Yeah, let your dreams be a monument for you.
Let
Yeah.
your dreams. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we close out this part one, I want you guys to just soak in that. Take in all that you've gotten from James, relish in that story, buy all of his stuff, subscribe to him and everything. But I want you to take that with you. Remember that you will do even greater works, and be mindful of the work that you're doing, because understanding that it will precede you, right? We want to make sure that um, we're putting out a positive footprint. We're putting out something that we want our legacy to be. You know, that's what Jesus is all about, legacy. All of that, all of his work was kingdom legacy. So, what legacy are you leaving for the kingdom?
Yeah.
That is my interview question to you, audience. So, James, thank you again. Thank you so much for everything. I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you so much for taking your time to be here with us tonight. And I'll see you in part two.
Yeah. Yeah. All glory goes to God. All glory goes to God.
So, with this coming to a close, I hope that you definitely love, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And yes, please share this with someone. Let someone know what we're doing over here on the Faith in Art platform, and come back to check out part two with James Ellerbe. Thank you again. Thank you for watching. You guys have a great night.